Good day from New York. My name is Ceciia O'Dwyer, and I'm a Loreto sister, and I'm the responsible of the NGO office, the Loreto NGO office at the United Nations. So I'm delighted to have this opportunity to just speak. I think it's to you this time rather than with you. On other occasions, I've been able to be present live, but this time I cannot be with you in person. So I'm just making this little video to give you some information about our work with the United Nations. Now, to begin with, what's the United Nations? I'm sure you all know already, but just to remind you that the United Nations is basically made up of 193 countries or member states, and they come together in what is the only forum in this world where every country has its own voice. Right? Now, as well as the countries, member states, we have two observer states, and you may be surprised to know that these states are, one of them is the Holy See, the Vatican, and the other is Palestine. Then who runs the United Nations, or who's the head of the United Nations? The present Secretary General, his name is Antonio Guterres, from Portugal, and he became Secretary General at the beginning of 2017. Now, as well as the member states of the United Nations, if you look at any photo, you'll see this big, tall building, and in that building, you have the staff of the United Nations. Now, they're different from the member states, right? The staff, what they do is basically they help facilitate the work of member states to come to agreements, to have sufficient information, to encourage them, to push them on, to help them make decisions that are important for the whole world. So there you have member staff, you have the staff, the member states, and then you also have civil society and other groups now of civil society. The NGO community, that is non-governmental organization, that's quite a large community with the United Nations. Now, we are not member states, and when I say we Loreto are part of the NGO community. We're not member states, but we collaborate with member states, and then we also challenge member states to do the very best for the people of their countries and the people of the world. So that's a kind of a basic view of what the United Nations is made up of, the different components. It is huge, the whole organization. Our office is in New York. There are also offices in various countries, for example, in Geneva, in Vienna. They would be two of the main areas, and also you have offices in Nairobi. And then you have regional offices, and you have national offices as well of different kinds. So it's a huge organization. There are about 67,000 staff working for the United Nations. And you all know, we often hear about the United Nations, especially the humanitarian work, the peacekeeping. And we usually hear, when things aren't doing that well, we hear a lot about it. We don't hear so much about the great work that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that, things are being worked out in such a way that it is for peace and for development in our world. The framework for our work with the United Nations is the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, or the SDGs, as you've probably heard people mention at school. Now, the Sustainable Development Agenda, or the 17 goals, 17 SDG goals, that is part of a massive universal development agenda, and the whole idea is to put people at the center of all development in our world, to care for our planet, to create a world of peace, to work together in partnership, and to ensure prosperity. for everybody. And then to make sure that nobody is left behind, because as we know, millions and millions of people are being left behind the whole time. And we all happen to be, I think, among the more privileged people in our world. And it's good for us to remember that we are very, very lucky people. And you are very, very lucky girls to be in the country you're living in and to have the opportunities you have. So, but at the same time, you in your own way, and all of us, we are all working to make this a better world for everybody, and to make sure that that we have inclusive prosperity for every member of the human family. So that's very important, and that is a kind of the basis of our work. Now, we work on kind of specific areas because it is huge, as you can imagine, but we have to kind of um, um, reduce our focus on specific aspects of that. So we always look at women and girls, and especially girls, because as you know, we have about 70,000 girls in our schools around the world. So, like, what is good for you, your empowerment and the empowerment of girls in right around the world, from those who are least privileged to those who are most privileged. That is very important for us. The question of women, that women really can improve their situation in every part of the world. That's an ongoing process of which you're probably aware. We work in groups, of, of working groups and committees. One particular group we work with is the working group on girls. Now, this is all about girls, about empowering girls, about making sure that, for example, if you're living in a country where there's a huge percentage of poverty, make sure that or try to make sure that the girls there will have every opportunity possible. Sometimes that goes from being registered when you're born. Now, that may seem ridiculous to you, but there are countries where girls are not even registered when they're born. Then there are girls, as you know, who have to just stay at home, cannot go to school, do not have access to education or to health, and maybe married very young, or maybe have some very painful cultural practices in their lives, which makes life more difficult for them than it would for all the rest of us who have better opportunities. And then, on the other hand, when we live in the countries we live in, we also have our problems, and girls also, as you know very well, have your problems. And they can vary from health problems, maybe sometimes health problems may be due to issues like the image we have of ourselves, the image of the perfect girl that's imposed on us. You have questions of the trafficking of girls in all around the world, human trafficking of girls, and that is a very serious and painful situation. Then you have questions of all kinds of health issues, um, uh, that you would be aware of yourselves as well, and that you can basically help each other when you have problems. There are lots and lots of issues around the internet, and the benefits which are very important, but then also the darker side of internet and what can happen to us and to you as girls. Now, the working group on girls, actually, one of the areas that they're really good at is they're working, and it's girls against violence against girls, right? So one thing is, when we speak of violence against girls and hope that others will, somehow look after our situation as girls. But what we're trying to do now is to make girls' voices heard, and that girls yourself, you speak up against violence against girls, right? So that is can be a challenge for you, which I hope you may think of taking up, as you look forward to maybe your final year at school and what you're going to do after school. Now, you may ask yourselves, how can girls become involved in the work of the United Nations? Well, I think to begin with, lots of you already actually send information of what you do to the office in New York. You do it, I think, through your teachers in Normanhurst, and we've had wonderful videos from you on a number of occasions and lots of information as well. And that's one beautiful way of contributing to the work of the United Nations and also to the different issues that are being worked on here. Then you can become, oh yes, you are doing YCON, isn't it, at the moment? And that is a model United Nations program. And that's a very good way to get to know how the United Nations functions, you know. There's a huge effort to bring youth delegates into the whole structure. So very often young people come to assemblies, youth assemblies in New York. Now, last year, for example, we had two past students of Loreto at the Summer Youth Assembly, one from Brisbane, the other from Kirribilli, I think it was. And it was lovely to think, yeah, we were two Australian youth representatives at the Youth Assembly at the United Nations. That is something you could become interested in. Every summer, they have a youth gathering. It's called the Youth Assembly at the United Nations. You might like if you're 16 years of age, you can come from 16 on. So you might like to be part of that sometime. It's a very, very interesting program, and then you meet people from all over the world and you get to know the issues that are of concern for people of your age all over the world. So that's a very good thing. The youth ambassadors. Now, that's another, if any of you would like to be a youth ambassador, if you have a particular issue that you're very, very passionate about and you are taking steps on that, then I'd encourage you to send me information about that, and you can maybe be a youth ambassador in that respect, and we can see how that will work out for all of us. I think it could be very, very good. There are lots of online ways of participating, which could be of interest to you. Your teachers will have some of that information. We have sent out a list of different programs. You know, there's the Alliance of Civilization that youth can belong to. There's the Department of Public Information that is youth representatives as well, and a lot of different UN programs. There's a very interesting campaign at the moment called Together, and it is really to create a positive story about immigrants and refugees. Most of us, or many of us in our countries, our families have originally been immigrants, but then people forget it. So this program is to kind of to create a positive narrative, you know, and just to look at what do refugees and immigrants, you know, how they contribute. And you probably have lots of stories of the wonderful things that in the ways that refugees and immigrants are contributing and have contributed. So that's another part. And anyway, if you would like to get in contact with me, I'll be delighted. And take care. And thanks very much, at least for giving me this opportunity just to share a few thoughts with you. And the very best of luck with your final year at college, at school, and then when you move on to college. And if any of you are interested in political science or whatever you're interested in, you can maybe think sometime about coming to the United Nations and being part of the United Nations system. So thank you very much indeed.